Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight is Friday night debate on Focus on Liberia. I'm happy that you can join us. Please invite a friend. Get your questions ready, and let's debate trending national issues. We will take a short break. When we come back, we will be introducing our guest tonight. Welcome back to Focus on Liberia. Tonight we're going to be delving into some current issues that are making headways and headlines in today Liberia. Number one, we have the AFL Chief of Staff says something about coup. He said people are sending text messages to stage a coup while President Weah is out of the country. We're going to talk about that. Also, Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings and the global people and politics. Mr. Cummings was in Claratown where he had a massive support from a group called the United Gribbles from all 5 counties in Liberia coming together to support Cummings. Almost a month later, another group came up to dissociate themselves with the group, saying they don't support Mr. Cummings. Recently, we saw Vice President Joseph Newman Boakai fly in a private jet, and he held a interview in Nigeria explaining his vision for the country arrest. The CPP has planned a rally with tire suffering, and why the CPP rally is being planned for December 17, the LPP, that's the party of Tiawan Gonglo, planned a rally also to rescue the state. To discuss all these, I have Ms. Madam Glendy Juniors. Glendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. It's good to be here.
And this is your first time on our Friday night debate. We are glad to have you.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
All right. Glendy is independent-minded. She does not have a side in Liberian politics. I also have Mr. Ambula Mame, who supports the candidacy of Councillor Tiawan Se Gonglo. Mr. Mame, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. It's good to be here. I had it on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. I also have Mrs. Welly A. Wilson, who is also an independent. Welly, welcome to Friday Night Debate. Welly, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We want to welcome our viewers from across the globe. This is our Friday night discussion. Fridays, we either have a debate or we discuss, things from different perspectives. The first on our menu tonight, we have the AFL Chief of Staff, Prince C. Johnson. General Prince C. Johnson is saying people are sending text messages saying since the president is staying long outside, he should overthrow. Glenda, you heard this. What do you make of it?
So my only question to the honorable, and I know he's a reputable man, is why now? Why did he speak now? If he's had text messages coming, I mean, who can authenticate those text messages? How long ago did he have them? So it's almost like saying, "Oh, I've known this for a while, and I'm just coming out to say it." So how do we know what he's saying is true? And if he is saying it, why did he not say it a while ago? So we all have to find out first, when did he get those text messages? And if people are sending you text messages, you are the AFL person, the chief security in the land, and you're allowing people to send you such messages, I would question his integrity as it relates to that. Why would he be sharing it now? And why did he act upon it when he got it instead of bringing it out like a gossip?
Thank you. There were people, actually, he made reference to a post by Mrs. Talo Kwengba.
Okay.
Saying, well, people are saying these things. So do you think that the feeling that President Weah should be overthrown while he was outside the country, do you think there were rumors somewhere or people were having such feeling? Or people were talking about it? Besides his text message, is this something that you yourself are hearing in the community as well?
So I wouldn't say I would have heard it, but I also think that looking at Liberia and the difficulties that people are faced with now today, of course, anybody wants to have a better life. And if it could be a hypothetical. What if he wasn't the president? What if we had somebody else? That doesn't mean that someone is thinking to have him overthrown or whatever. But my thing with the story and coming out now is, why did he have to say it now? If people have been talking about it a long time. There are a lot of talk show hosts that become enraged and they say other things. Why would it come from our chief security now? And if he heard those things, what did he do? Why did he not act upon it instead of saying it when he has a press conference and weeks or months later, then he's saying, oh, he heard this, or oh, some other people send him text messages? How do we authenticate what he said is true?
Thank you. Let me go to Ambula. Ambula, what you make of the Chief of Staff's revelation?
For me, I don't think it's a revelation. To a larger extent, I doubt the authenticity of the claim. I don't believe it. I see it more as a strategy to instill fear in the people, specifically towards, the unannounced protests and going towards 2023 elections. The chief of staff is aware that the president of the country is the commander-in-chief, the armed forces of Liberia. If he was hinted to overthrow his boss, the first place to have made such a conversation, would have been with the president. But to come to the public and make wild claims of people asking him to overthrow the president in the president's absence without calling the names of those people, I doubt the authenticity. But my disappointment is in the president and the Ministry of National Defense. We all are aware of the horrible experiences we have with the military intervention in civil affairs. Liberia went to war. The armed forces responsible to protect the state became a faction. But before that, we know in the past of how military intervention in civil affairs have led to chaos, have undermined states, have undermined the rule of law. The US government and other international partners decided to invest heavily in transforming the AFL, the Armed Forces of Liberia, from a brutal force to a force for good. And that's why they carry the tag name Force for Good. The intention was to keep them as a professional institution that will only come up when it becomes extremely necessary. For the Ministry of Defense to remain quiet, for the President of Liberia to remain quiet on a statement from the Chief of Staff that undermines the rule of law, on a statement from his Chief of Staff that instills fear in his people. I'm disappointed that the ministry have not released a statement to disassociate the ministry to disassociate the institution from the statement of the Chief of Staff and restore confidence and hope of Liberians that the AFL is a force for good and not a brutal force. Up to today, the president hasn't spoken. I know he on his safari. The Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Defense have not made a comment. What it signals to me is they support his action to instill fear in our people. That's the reason why they've not disassociated themselves from the statement. But they know, they are aware that the statement itself is irresponsible.
Yeah.
Mr. Mambe, is it a medium?
Undermines basic tenets of democracy.
Is
but
it a
why
medium?
are they speaking?
Is it a medium that he has used, or because he said so, so it's false? You know, is it because he said it, you know, on a talk show instead of going through the proper channel, or you just have doubt that it's not possible that anybody will text message the AFL boss?
If the AFL boss can muster the courage to come publicly and say he was texted and asked to overthrow his boss, he's on a moral obligation to say who texted him.
Yes.
If he cannot say that, then I can believe it, I can trust it. But the point I'm trying to send across here is beyond just believing whether somebody texted him or not. The point I'm driving through is my disappointment in the President and the Ministry of National Defense in remaining silent, which is an indication of their support of the statement of the Chief of Staff to undermine democracy, to instill fear in our people, and to undermine the rule of law. The civil police, the police has a responsibility to intervene in civil affairs. There are other security apparatus that have the responsibility to curtail violence. The military can only come up when they are requested to do so based on the situation. You cannot be preempting violence in advance and threatening that you will come up when such violence occurs. What are the intelligence that people are planning violence that will necessitate the police, the army to come out? What are the intelligence? What are the information? The police have not made requests to you that they need your service because they've been overwhelmed by violence. Why are you preempting chaos and even threatening to come out? I only saw his statement as a strategy to instill fear in the people towards an announced protest and towards the 2023 election. But Liberians are not people who can easily succumb to those type of things any longer. People are resilient, the people are brave, and Liberians will come out to say and express in whatever way they feel comfortable or whatever way that aligns with the law, to express their disappointment and reject the failure the our government has brought to them.
Thank you. Let me go to Welly and let me get your take.
Well, I think the Chief of Staff, first of all, is looking for favor from the President of Liberia. He is trying to exert more power than is required for the army. So as it stands, he wants to be doing the work of the Justice Minister and the police. I listened to his second interview where he's listing different occurrences where the army was called in. And that is really, really scary, because if the army would be called on everything like ordinary protests around Monrovia, then the police is not functional. So we should be looking forward to maybe at some point having army people coming to arrest people, because they will assume that the police cannot do their work. And for him to even come publicly to talk about people texting him. You can't just text anybody that you don't know. These people that he said texted him, he knows the people. So he's under obligation to call the names of all those that tested him to overthrow the president. And if he is not in, the spirit of overthrowing somebody, why come up publicly to explain it? He needed to talk to the president. He needed to tell the people that texted him not to text him or warn them. So coming to say things publicly will instill fear. Those that want to protest will feel like the army is going to come at them because the police are trained to treat civilians differently than the army. I was surprised when I listened the protest that went on in Maryland. He said the army was called in. When Alexander Cummings was held hostage in Grand Gita, he said it was the army that released him. When they were planning June 7 protests, he said the army was standing by. So is the army not doing the work that it's supposed to be doing than to come and do police work? So all these things are very, very troubling. But I think he needs to be called in to explain a little more what he knows about who said what. Because Liberia has gone through a whole lot of problems, starting from the 1980 coup to the civil crisis. So to come up publicly and talk violence from the chief of staff, especially of the country, this is not ordinary man. There is enough reason to invite him, for more elaboration on what he knows. And like somebody said, or one of my colleagues said, the president's supposed to say something. The defense ministry is supposed to say something. Everybody can just be looking like nothing's happening. We are in times that everyone is concerned. The 2023 elections are coming, and everybody is looking forward to peace. But coming up to threaten people that are trying to express their, rights is something that is not really going down well.
Right, but we should also be guided by what happened 89. 89, when people came up, Chief Gonyo and the rest of the people from Nimba and say, we are seeing some strange movement in Nimba. There could be a coup. There's something is happening, something strange. People dismiss that. If we don't take this seriously, aren't we running that same risk? Or Glendy, what should be done now?
The thing is, just a minute. The thing is, Gonyo did not have the authority to do anything. He brought a report so people could have listened. You right, but the person who's speaking is the most powerful person in the nation.
Exactly.
He's supposed to do something about it instead of telling the citizens. So he's creating panic.
And I think I want to start with what Welle is saying, because this man is the chief security. If you have people texting you, telling you that your president's life is at risk, and you think the only thing you can do is to come online or do an interview and say people have been texting me, then we should have serious concerns. What is even more discouraging is that nobody follow up with him. When people come and say stuff, if a civilian has said that, if some ordinary person has said that, the media would probably have chased them down. They would have asked questions. The story would have continued. But if he's the chief security person coming out and saying, Mr. President, there are people that have been texting me, they want to overthrow you. I mean, what are we supposed to do with the story when you're the one supposed to keep the state safe? And you're telling us the state is not safe. So what should we do about it?
What are we supposed to do? Run away?
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. What I'm saying is, like, timing for me, is kind of fishy for me. Why now? When the president has been gone for weeks, nobody even hearing from where he is or what he's doing. He's saying that now when he's not in country, and then nobody from the government even asked him, or the president himself did not even say No one even commented on what the defense minister has said. So I find it hard to believe. So authenticity for me is I have serious doubt that it happened, and I have concerns that it's now that he's talking about it. Why now? And like my other colleague said, I think it's just fear mongering, trying to make people afraid. Say the army won't come on. This is the thing. You're talking about, let's just look on the other side. So CDC were talking about 1 million people protests or whatever. They were looking to having 1 million people. This same army minister of the army is saying we only have 2,500 soldiers. So how are the 2,500 soldiers going to combat 1 million people? Come on. How are they going to do it? And say, for example, if CPP had 25,000 people, how is the 2,500 going to be able to combat anything? And
shoot them.
And at what point did he decide that he needed to speak or he needed to say these things? Did somebody say that the protest or the rally that's coming is going to be violent? Why did he think it was necessary to make those statements at this time? If it was not to put fear in people to say, oh, the soldier people coming, well, you're going to be scared. That's it.
Thank you. So at this point, and I want us to conclude on this now, at this point, what should be done? Because if you brush it aside and if something happens, we all say, oh, why didn't we take this seriously? And so what do we do now? Oh, let me start with Mame.
The first thing is the Joint National Security should invite the chief of staff,
Absolutely.
gather information from him, facts surrounding his statement. But until they can do that, I doubt that the statement is true, it's authentic. I think it's intended to instill fear in people, and it has failed upon arrival. So to your question about what to do is to have him provide the evidence of the people who want to overthrow the president, and that those people can be arrested and prosecuted. An attempt to overthrow the president is a serious crime. It's not something to be discussed on the radio. In as much as we oppose George Weah and the governance, strategy for the country, we want him to end his term. We want to remove him democratically. Anybody who intends to move the president outside the democratic process should be investigated, arrested, and prosecuted. That's a crime. So why would the state have evidence of people committing crime or people attempting to commit such serious crime and cannot take action? That in itself speaks to, a lot of things. So that's the first step. They should do that. And if they cannot do that, then it's an indication, it's a marker that they support his statement, and the statement is only intended, to instill fear in the people. So on this note, we call on the president, we call who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, we call on the Ministry of National Defense to issue a statement distancing the government and the institution from the statement of the chief of staff, and assuring Liberians that the armed forces of Liberia is a force for good and not a brutal force. They will live by their ethics, they will remain in the barracks, and then they will only come up when it becomes extremely necessary, especially for external threat. But it goes, to take the discussion further, those are some of the reforms we talk about, but we'll talk about that going further, how we can get the army to be active beyond just being in the barrier and waiting for external threat. How can we deploy them into infrastructure development? How can we use their expertise or even train them and deploy them into, agricultural transformation? Not giving them the responsibility to drive it, but they are have manpower. We can use them with their energy to be able to move resources to places to help address some of our problems.
Right. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to venture in this area, but wouldn't that be free speech if somebody comes to you and say, hey, go overthrow the president? What's the crime in it? I didn't do anything. I asked you, you are the army guy. So what would be the reason for arresting such person if I send you a text and say, go and overthrow the president so you will be president or somebody else? And I personally don't have the capacity to overthrow the president. What would be the crime in it for someone to be arrested?
Malicious intent.
Yes. And why is that person why is that person telling you? Why is that person so comfortable with telling you, the defense minister? What's the story being? What's the relationship with you and that person that they're so comfortable that they can come and say to you, I want you to overthrow the president, or I'm thinking about doing it. Why would they want to do that to you? And why would you not think it's something serious?
Liquor talk, maybe.
Already? As far as possible. So maybe when he asked Claire for the liquor that time, he decided to come and tell us it was too late.
Well, let's conclude. What do we do at this point?
I mean, I think there should be, I think the media as a whole should be able to hold him accountable. I think they should ask him more questions. I think they send in their own recess or whatever. Those people who have the authority, they should call him, like he said, the joint security. They should follow, pursue whatever he's saying. Talk to whoever is saying that. First, they should authenticate if this is serious. If this is a serious threat that he received, we cannot just leave it alone and just say, oh, he said it. He's not an ordinary person. This is the defense minister of the eldest republic in Africa and saying this. So it shouldn't just be taken lightly. They should take it seriously so that he knows and other people know next time it's not just something to joke with. So they should pursue him and investigate further on what he's saying.
Well, let's conclude on that.
Yeah, first of all, I don't think you should have said that. Secondly, I'm afraid that if they push him to say who said what, we had the experience before in Liberia. So when people are pushed, they can either make up stories and say, so a person from the opposition said this, and innocent people might be affected. So we have to be careful how to address it. If somebody say go and overthrow, that's freedom of speech. They are not plotting anything. They're only saying it. So it's left with him to act on it. And how will somebody feel so free with him to tell him things if the person is not his friend? So that's where the question is supposed to go to him to elaborate on what he has said.
Right. Talking about history, remember Franz Hamilton?
Yes.
Who accordingly was asked to overthrow and we all found out that was a setup. Unfortunately, Franz Hamilton was killed, and that's...
You don't want that set up here.
Let's move on to Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings. Full disclosure, I'm Gribble from Sino. They are...
Who said you from Gribble? Oh, okay.
Right. So we saw on our TV screen Mr. Cummings in the Claratown Dole community area, where a massive crowd dressed in their Gribble attire pledged their support to Cummings, and I saw Mr. Cummings doing the talk, even though he was dancing like he's dancing Sweet Mother, but that's okay. This little, and many people saw this as tribal politics. This almost a month later, another group came up and said they represented all the Gribbles from the 5 counties in the southeast, dissociating themselves from what the group did, and even going as far as saying Mr. Cummings is not Gribble. In fact, Mr. Cummings is a Togolese. What is going on here? Let me start with you, Welle. What is going on with Mr. Cummings and the Gribble people? Is it tribal politics to go and get the Gribble support? Because people say if your house does not sell you, the street would not buy you. Before then, people questioned that Mr. Cummings didn't have a base. Now people, when the Gribbles came out, they say, wow, now you see his base. Another group came up. People are saying money changing him. What is the story? What are you hearing? And what's your take on this whole Cummings and Gribble people?
Well, I watched the 2 videos, and to me, the first video where these Gribble people, telling Mr. Cummings that the Gribble people support him, I think it was not a right strategy. Especially when I think about what happened from 1989, some people got killed because people said they were either supporting the president or they were not supporting the president. So, it's true. Mr. Cummings can have a base in wherever he comes from. But to organize Gribble people and say, Gribble people support you, I think that statement was not right. Now, the second group of people, I would say they have all right to say what they said, But then there were elements among them that were also sounding partisan to CDC. So the purpose to me was not 100% right. The purpose of the rebuttal, because there were elements there that made it to look partisan as well. But all in all, I think it's a wrong idea to say Grebo people support you. You know, it's not possible that the entire Grebo will support somebody. It's not. So if you say Association of Grebo people in Claratown, it will make more sense than to say Grebo people in general. I think it was not a right strategy.
Glenn, what do you think here? You think this is good strategy? You think this is tribal politics?
I don't think it's tribal politics. I think people, and I want to disagree with what Wally said, because there are two organizations. The first group said Grebo United, Grebo People United, from 5 different counties. And then the other group said that I think they're from Montserrado. So I think whoever decides to support whoever, I mean, we have a lot of people. You can say, so what will we say to the president of Liberia now when you have almost everybody that's close to him or in top position from Southeast, from the eastern region of Liberia, Southeastern region? What do we say? Should we say that the government of Liberia is into partisan tribal politics?
No,
Can we not say that?
We'll say party politics, not tribal.
Well,
Those people
that's
might
what I'm
be Grebo
saying.
people,
Well,
but they are partisans.
yeah, but they're all from Southeast. It's kind of ironic that you have several people, we can name them, several people in key positions that come from the same era where President we are. So if you have the Grebo people saying, I have absolutely no problems with people coming up and saying they support Gonglo or they support Cummings. That's their choice. That's their right.
Individually, that's fine, but to
No,
use the whole...
I think they can do it as a group, because this is the thing. I don't think that Mr. Cummings, I mean, you're almost saying, well, it's like Mr. Cummings was the one that put the people together to go and say, we support you. No, if you have proof of that, then bring it out. I don't think Mr. Cummings did that. Okay, I think people got together and said they support him. And I think the other people, and clearly the other people waited like a month. So I can also say those people that came a month later to rebut what the first group has said had some influence from CDC. But equally so, everyone has the right to support whoever they want to support, regardless of what Southeastern region they come from or whatever region, because as it seems, everybody in the government now in top position, go to the House of Representatives, go to the Senate. You have key people there. They're all from President Weah's area. So what are we saying here? People don't have the right to support who they want to?
No,
but whatever organization they can. And I don't find anything wrong with that.
Thank you. Wally, you wanted to say something before I go to...
Yes, I wanted to say something. People that work in the government, they were given those positions based on their party affiliations, not because they were from the Southeast or because they are Grebo people or Kru people. That's how I see it. Now, on a line of people saying that they represent each of the 5 tribes or subgroups in the subgroups of Grebo, that can't even be possible, because those people that they said represented people couldn't have represented the whole area. So for instance, when you say somebody is from River G or from Maryland that is representing Maryland, it's not possible for that one person to represent the whole of Maryland County, because there's so many people in Maryland that one person cannot tell anybody they representing in their support to Mr. Cummings. That's why it's good to either do it individually or do it as an organization. I'm not sure whether they had an organization that is really functional.
That's the key. You have to find out for whether there is an organization that is established.
Right, that's what we need to find out.
Until we can establish that there's an organization
we can check on
that is authentic to do that, then we can say, okay, they are right or they didn't. But as far as I know, based on the 2 groups, I think anybody who wants to support anybody has a right to do it, whether they're in a group or whether they're an individual.
Glenn, the question.
I don't really believe they are organized group. I'm still following it up. But I don't think so. I think they just got together and wanted to, declare their support. But where my problem is for individuals in the group
to speak for an entire ethnic group.
think that they represent.
Right. Okay. Before I go to Mame, Glennie, you are comparing Grebo and Southeast. Southeast that make of 5 counties.
I get that.
Yeah. So when you say that people in we are government are Southeast, we have never, divided Liberia like that before when it comes to people taking part in government. The only region we hear of mainly is Southeast. We have never said during the rule of Madame Ellen to say these are people from Northwest. So it's either on a county basis or ethnic group basis, but a whole group. Those are 5 counties.
And the reason why I bring up that point is because we're looking at tribal politics, and I'm saying is that if you want to say that, and you want to say that Grebo people are not aligned with Cummings or they align with Cummings, then we can also look at the We Are government and see who he has been appointing to different positions.
But
I'm not saying that's what's happening.
A region is different from an ethnic group. So my question to you, Mame, if what we don't normally see is for an ethnic group to support a political party, to say, well, we are the United Mano people or all Crew people or all Mandingo people. So many people saw this, say this is tribal politics. Do you agree?
I think we should try to distinguish tribal politics from identity politics.
Thank you.
So the connotation that comes with tribal politics is basically one group of people, because of their tribe, try to discriminate against other people because they're not part of that tribal group. That's tribal politics. That's the connotation. In terms of identity politics, is organic, that people who identify with you, whether because of your tribe, whether because of your ideological thinking, whether because of your social lineages, will come and pledge support for you if it happens organically, right? So my candidate is from Nimba. He proud to announce that I'm from Nimba.
Yes.
I'm a son of Nimba County. I live with my people. I work with them. I grew up here as a
I
child.
expect him to support
I've
me.
made sacrifices for them. I put my life on the line to fight for them, to fight for other people. So he proud to identify as a man from Nimba County. But when he speaks about how he provides leadership for Liberia. He doesn't speak about how he provides leadership for the people of Nimba. His idea for transformation is not to transform Nimba, it's to transform Liberia. His campaign, his anti-corruption campaign to instill the rule of law is not to instill rule of law in Nimba. It's not to fight corruption in Nimba. It's to improve governance for the entire country. So because of the way he takes his approach to identifying with his group, but drawing a line between his identity and his ideological position for governance, when he goes to Grand Jida County, the poor Grand Jida County honor him and give him name. When he comes to Bon County, the poor Bon County honor him and give him name. When he comes to Monserrado County, among the intellectuals who gave him name. So the thing about Cummings' approach and what happened in Claratown was not organic, in as much as I can attribute it to tribal politics because of my connotation of tribal politics, one group excluding another group because of tribal identity. I don't think that organization was organic. That's my belief, that people just came together, So Louis Bryan and other people thought that it would be good for Cummings to identify with his base, to identify with a base in the political process and rally.
So we're making assumptions now. We're making assumptions.
And that's why I'm an analyst. I'm an analyst because I look at the turn of event and make assumptions. That's what make me an analyst. If I'm not an analyst, I wouldn't be looking at issues to make assumptions.
I understand that, but you're also an analyst coming from a camp and you're supporting Gonglo. So everything you're saying here, in as much as we may assume that you're analyzing, you're also doing favoritism to your partisan, to your candidate.
You can say that.
So you're not analyzing it. You're not being neutral in your analysis.
Yeah, you can say that. That's up to you. But I'm speaking. I know I got up to 100, maybe 1,000 people on the platform. I'm speaking to them. They can process my analysis and decide whether I'm speaking in a biased position against Cummings or not. Like you thinking, but that's what I think. Given the sequence of events, the way it happened, the structure, the organization, it speaks to me as somebody who been on the ground and involved with politics and activism in Liberia. It gives me a sense that what happened in Clarendon was not organic. It was planned, it was organized to give a name tag to Cummings in the political process. And the reaction thereto by another group of people was as seen as the original organizing. So other people say, okay, since he can come and organize among group of people and say group of people support him, we ourselves can do the same thing he did, but send a different message. That's how it happened. But when Councillor Gonglo goes to Grand Gila County and they get name, you don't see another group coming and say, no, we reject our name because it's organic.
Well,
I agree with you 100%. Anything that is organic will not backfire.
It will not backfire.
Backfire because it was not organic. That organization, you go check it out, it's not registered anywhere. It has not
Grand
even
Gila County. Councillor Gonglo was in Grand Gila County. He slept there. They gave him gold, they gave him cow, they gave him name. It didn't backfire because it's organic.
And nobody said that.
Hold on, Wale, do you believe in both the both groups? Do you believe money change hands? Because you keep talking about non-organic. What do you think caused these people to come out in support and for and against Mr. Cummings? What is the driver? What do you think? Oh, let me start with Mami because you say it was not organic. What's your reliance?
Oh, you asking me?
A lot of things could change here. A lot of things could be in the metrics, right? One of them could be, we'll give you money. That's an assumption. Another thing could be promises. Sometimes you don't have to give money. You organize major stakeholders in the global community. You say, I'm your son, mobilize the people. Let it come and support me when I become president. You people will be the first people I will talk to. You will be the first people I will prefer. Those are not statements that are made publicly. Those are statements that are made during the negotiation and discussion period. Now, other people who feel that those stakeholders who organized the process, which was not organic, will be the prime beneficiary if Cummings becomes president. So they on the other side say, oh, okay, we are also global people. But he didn't come to us, he didn't include us in the metric. So for that reason, if he becomes president, we will not benefit. It is those people who he associated with or who organize the event for him will benefit. So we will come and disassociate ourselves so that we can align with another group. So when that group wins, so money could be a factor, promises for job could be a factor, and promises of different opportunities could be a factor. But my point is, it was not organic. The fact that there have been, reaction and the way we're organized, I mean, it tells you a whole lot. You don't have a political organization. But I don't have problem in context. I don't have problem with group of global people coming together, knowing Cummings or global men from Maryland County. Say, this is our son who support him. Absolutely, I don't have problem.
And the problem, Wale, you say you have is you are saying it is not possible for all the group of people to do that. What do you think is going on here for both groups?
Well, I'm not going to quote myself. I'm going to quote the second involved. When I listened to the second video, they said that money was given to organize the first group. And so they came up and said, we are not going to be included in this because if trouble comes tomorrow, we will be affected. One man spoke from Sabo, I think Swekin, in River G, and his statement was very clear. He said, we had the experience before where people were killed because they were for the president, quote unquote. And so nobody should say, Grable people support sister president. Anybody want to support the candidate, that's fine. But don't use the tribe because we don't want tomorrow for the whole tribe to be hunted down like before. And in that group, other people expressed that money was given for that group to be organized to say what it said.
And in that same group, there were some who said we support President Weah because he's our son, because he's building roads, because he's doing X, Y,
Those
Z.
were the partisans. Those were the partisans that got in the second group to voice out their interest.
Right.
Because I listened to the speakers and they had legitimate points.
Right.
But then there were some elements partisan to CDC that came and they were like spoilers.
But how you know that?
That's the thing. It's like
we're running campaign too.
How do you know that the infiltrated that they were not the original group? Because there were people there who were extremely partisan. There were people who said Mr. Cummings is from Togo. He's not from here. He does not have a house or a foundation in Maryland.
The lady that spoke, she's from Maryland.
Right.
She said that Cummings' father was the cook to President Tubman, and that when his father died, they moved to Monrovia, and he grew up here and blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't know much about that. I can't say anything about that, but that's what she said.
Right.
But this is the thing. My point is, so we're looking at, we're all doing hypotheticals here. No one knows the truth. We're all making assumptions based on what
that's what we are here for.
No, exactly. Yeah, I'm just saying. We're all making assumptions based on what we saw and based on what we heard. So I can assume, and I want to continue to stick with my position. Unless the Grable people come together, if there are 1 million Grable people, they come together and say, no, we don't support Cummings. Then the group that came out and said we support Cummings, that's fine. And the other group that came out and said we don't support Cummings, that's their issue. So unless you can authenticate that these groups are not valid groups, or that you know for sure that money's past hands, then it's a hypothetical thing that we don't know the truth, or we just to interpret that.
Yeah, we just quoting people that were there.
But Glenda, here's the issue, right? The Grable people live in those 5 counties. These people that are talking, they are all in Monrovia, Clarendon.
Thank you. That's another point. They're in Clarendon. They're not even from the rural area.
And now we have 2 groups. One said
the people from
Clarendon must rather Grable. So we want to hear from the Grable people in Maryland, wherever they are.
My question to you, Glennie, I mean, it's pure politics, but what do you think is going on here?
I mean, let me tell you, you just hit the nail. It's politics.
It's politics.
That's what it is.
Why do you think it has taken Mr. Cummings this long to actually identify with the Grable people? Say, I am a Grable man, I'm going among my people, because this was the first time people, in fact, there were people who were asking him to run as senator for Maryland and all that he identified with the group. Anytime they ask him, where is his base? Does he have a base in Maryland? He said, oh, if you say that, that's a cold war for tribalism. So why do you think it has taken Mr. Cummings this long to actually embrace the Grable people and identify with them and kind of involve them in his party politics?
So you're going back to hypothetical again, Dennis, because we're talking about we don't want to limit the Grable people to Monrovia and Clarendon. We just said that. So are you trying to say to me that Mr. Cummings has never been to Maryland County?
No, he has visited Maryland.
How can we say that his going to Maryland County was not identifying with the people of Maryland? The several visits he's made there. We can't say that. So we cannot limit Maryland County to Monrovia, because Monrovia.
Do we have videos of his visit in Maryland with the same kind of group pledging support? Do we have those videos?
I don't know if you have the video or not, but his question to me is that why is it that Mr. Cummings is identifying with the people of Maryland now? And I'm saying,
no, I didn't say Maryland. I said Grable.
Okay, Grable people.
Monrovia.
Yeah,
Grable people. He said the Grable people.
Right.
And I'm saying I am moving away from the fact that Grable people are not limited to only the people that live in Monrovia. So I'm asking you, Has there never been a time where Cummings had identified with the people, the Grable people, by even going to visit Maryland County? Or are we just seeing it now that he's doing it now?
Because we don't have any videos
No,
of
what
people
we
pledging
saw-
support.
Video is
That's
the
it.
evidence for you,
No,
Wele?
what we
Why,
saw.
if I'm not there, that's the video I see to know what
Oh,
happened.
well, let me answer that question. The answer is what we saw in Claratown has never happened.
That's my point.
Yeah, what we saw in Claratown has never happened since he began his campaign.
Okay, so you can say that, but you can't assume that people relate to people differently. Correct? Can we say that people relate to people differently? That we can't assume that because you haven't seen a video or you haven't seen him in a meeting with Grable people or Crew people or Crown people, then it means that he has not identified with them. I want to be fair. I want to be fair. I'm not going to say that because there's no video to say, oh, people pledging their loyalty to him, so it means that he has not identified. Well, I've heard Cummings before saying that he's from Maryland County. I've seen videos where he went to Maryland County. And people attribute even the Maryland part. People even attribute the hammer ride with him to President Tutman.
Right.
So how can we come now and say that this man has not aligned himself with Grable people?
No. He said that. People said. He's not saying it. He said people said. He was quoting people.
Oh well, I can't. I try not to do hypotheticals. Come bring
I
proof.
think there have been a reorganization of the Cummings campaign strategy. They've been assessing their strengths and their weaknesses. They've been re-evaluating their strategy, and they try to insert new concepts into their strategy to be able to, in their view, attract more votes. Some of those new concepts include having an identity, quote unquote, a base. That was the first introduction.
So what identity you need a Liberian? A Liberian identity.
Come again.
He's a Liberian. That's his identity.
So then the people should have said group of Liberians support Cummings. They shouldn't say Grable.
So then let's question the people who did it. Let's question the Grable people.
And he accepted the petition.
And that's why the other people said no, they don't represent Grable people.
Exactly.
They see Grable people say that Grable people don't know what they want.
The point I'm driving through is the point I'm trying to drive through is the endorsement is just part of a refinement campaign strategy, for the Cummings team. Another part of that refinement is the protest that the people announce. Is a part of that refinement. The general view among most people is there are certain things you have to do in the Liberian politics to be able to attract the attention and the fame that you need to go into an election. One, you must have a base. The connotation for that base is you must have a tribal or a county connection. Cummings has been floating around. And to be honest, there was one thing Cummings said that aligns with my worldview a whole lot. Unfortunately, he has departed, and that's how our Gonglo sticks to. Now, Cummings once upon a time said, talking about base, Liberians are poor. Whether you're from Nima, you're from Grand Gila, you poor. The issues of the day is what my base is surrounded on. The economic growth, empowering the private sector. He said, so everybody who wants to see economic growth align with my base. But unfortunately now, people say that message was not resonating. So he diverted to coming to have a base that he has stayed away from. On our side, Gonglo believes that you cannot solve Liberia's problem without addressing corruption and the rule of law. Every Liberian believes that the fundamental root cause of our problem is corruption. If you address corruption, you solve Liberia's problem. The American government, all our international partners have all agreed that the major headwinds to the progress of our country is corruption. So Gonglo builds his campaign not on tribe, not on religion, but on the fact that he can fight corruption and instill the rule of law, bring dignity to public service. So anybody who believes that you can solve Liberia problem through corruption, through addressing corruption, you're part of our base. And our assessment has shown that up to 95% of the Liberian population have conceded that the only one thing you can address to solve our problem and project us as a middle-income country is to address corruption. So we don't get time, whether you Nima, you Grand Jide, you Basso, you Coup, you Grand Jide. Once you believe that fighting corruption will solve our problem, you constitute a significant portion of our base and will rally around you.
Thank you, Mame. You're trying to put in your plug for.
Yeah.
Mame, you button.
As if to say corruption just started here.
Nobody has addressed it. That's why Congo will be the first person.
Thank you. It is fair to say, Glendy, that that message, because the whole idea of Mr. Cummings and his base has been lingering, and he has stayed away from identifying with a county or an ethnic group as its base. What we saw in Claratown is a shift from what Mr. Cummings was doing before, and that's why we are asking. But let's move on to Vice President Joseph Newman Boakai. There's a big news about Mr. Boakai riding or flying in a private jet with his colleague, or ALP political leader, Benina Yuri. Also, while he was in Nigeria, he had an interview that he explained. I mean, Mr. Mame, is this flying private jet, is it a big deal? Or we're just making noise for nothing here?
For me, I look at it twofold. You know, Vice President Boakai left from Liberia on a commercial flight. He didn't ride a private jet. Boakai is a poor man. He doesn't have money. And then he traveled to Nigeria.
Another assumption.
Huh?
Thank you.
Another
assumption. You don't know what's in his pocket.
You have to quote him.
Yeah.
Okay. So if Boakai travels to Nigeria on a commercial flight to meet people, and one of the persons he decided to meet say, "Hey, I'll send him a car to pick you up," he wouldn't say, "No, I won't ride a car, I won't ride keke," you know, because he's a poor man. Now, in the case, the person who sends, you know, invitation for him is worthy enough to send a private jet. But the real issue for me is not the private jet. To be honest, it's not a private jet. If I'm running to be president and I came to the US to visit, and somebody who believes I can be a better president for Liberia, say, for example, President Joe Biden, believes that I can be a better, after his presidency, he believes I can be the president, I can be a good president for the United States. Hey, Amula, yeah, in the United States, I've been following your activities. I want us to meet. Can we meet tomorrow? And I say, oh, no, we can meet tomorrow, but I need to arrange my flight. Maybe when I book ticket, we'll take it. He said, no, you don't have to worry about booking ticket for tomorrow. If you're available, I can send my flight to come and pick you up for us to meet. I will jump on the flight and go. So the issue about the flight is for me, it's just a distraction from the real issue. Boakai has been vice president for 12 years. We didn't see him riding private jet. He lived all his life in Liberia. Nobody knows him to be an extravagant person. Nobody knows Boakai to be an extravagant person. He lived a simple, modest life. That's his style. He could be stingy, like people will say Boakai is stingy man. So he lived a stingy life. Stingy man can ride private jet, right? So the real issue with the Boakai trip that I'm trying to dig further into is, who is Boakai meeting? Who are these people? What's their interest? And that's why I wanted the Boakai person to come on the show so we can ask those questions. The second thing is, you know, in politics, every action you take, every decision you make to come public, there is a motive. Except there are, you know, unsophisticated political actors. But sophisticated political actors, every action they take that they bring to the public because of motive that helps drive their agenda. What was the motive of those with Boakai in Nigeria posting that picture on Facebook? Because nobody knew that Boakai rode private jet until members of his delegation posted the picture on Facebook. We wouldn't have known until that picture came. What's the motive of posting Vice President Bouaka in Nigeria riding private jet? Now, the second thing and the most important thing is, who is Vice President meeting? What's the characteristic and traits of these people? What's their interest in our politics and our country? I have no problem with sub-regional and regional actors having interest in Liberia politics, or Liberian having interest in regional politics. No problem. But when we try to do a character trick of the people you're interacting with on your way to the presidency, it's a condition to ponder over. And that's why it was good that the people of Bouaka appear on the show to tell who are these people. We are getting indication that even the structure of the party, of the Unity Party, is doubtful or is unaware of everything happening between Bouaka and his friends, you know, in Nigeria. So that is my main point. My point is not a private jet. If I travel to Nigeria and my friend want to send me a private jet to go visit, I will ride and go there. And that is
that means it depends on the friend, right?
Exactly.
All right. Let me go to Glendy.
The important thing to learn my thought on this is the important thing we should be focused on is who is Bouaka meeting? What's the characteristic of these people? What's their historical traits that we can follow? What's their interest in our country? And those are information that the Bouaka team should be explaining to Liberian people. Oh, we met this man, he having interest in this, having interest in that. I think it will be fair to us, rather than us sticking around, you know, somebody offering Bouaka to ride private jet. Probably having private jet.
And Mr. Mame, we don't even know that, right? That it was an offer.
Yeah.
We don't know for a fact if actually someone, the VP was visiting, say, hey, I'm sending my private jet for you. Don't ride it, Kake.
Oh, no, they say so.
Yeah, I mean,
but there's no official statement. There is no official statement.
No, official spokesperson from the Bouaka camp said that Bouaka went to Nigeria and the friend that Bouaka was going to visit decided to send a private jet to pick him up.
Who's that? Official? Who's that official on the Bouaka trip that made a statement?
Costa.
Right. I mean, it's not part of the trip, right?
No, he's not part of the trip. According to him, he was scheduled to be on the trip, but he decided to stay.
Right. So we can't take that as an official statement unless it comes from the Bouaka camp. I've interviewed a lot of Bouaka people, and nobody will actually say, yes, I'm speaking officially for the campaign. So we don't know that. Let me go to Glendy. Glendy, what do you make of this VP trip? This is not the first time we see pictures coming out of airplanes, right? We saw that with Mr. Dillon. Now with Mr. Bouaka. Is it breaking morale or want to look presidential or a mistake? Or really, how this picture came about? What do you make of this jet or private jet?
So for me, there's so many ways I look at it, but in one word, I say optics. The optics for me was very poor. And if Vice President Bouaka wanted to be transparent, so that we don't have any biases as to have an opinion, a negative opinion about the trip, then from the onset, we would have known that he was traveling. We would have also seen, why is it important to show us the pictures in a private jet but not in the commercial? How sure are we that the pictures in the commercial flight will not have appealed to us more? What is the essence of showing us pictures in a private jet? And I think everybody shared the same opinion when we're saying, who did he go to meet? What was the meeting about? Why did he have to travel with Ure and his daughter to go to a meeting? What was involved? So, and because we haven't heard, I just simply said, for me, I think it was a bad move. And if it was a move to make him look presidential, I think with the fair fact that we've been crowning, yes, people say, oh, some of the things we're hearing, oh, Bouaka is a private citizen. We get that. But he's not an ordinary private citizen. He was the former vice president of Liberia, who's now running to be president of Liberia. So it's not an ordinary thing. When you want to be, when you know better, you have to do better. When you hear people frowning on President Weah for riding private jet. And then you see Boyka, who cannot afford it. As we're all saying, oh, Boyka, that poor man, he didn't get money for a private jet. And so all of a sudden we see him. Why was it important for him to ride private jet? They say, oh, he went to one state and had to travel to another state. Could he not have continued to have flown a commercial flight? So this is the thing. And if up until now, we don't have an official statement from the boycott camp coming out to say, this is what happened, this is where he went, this is who he wants to meet, then it means to them, they don't care what we have to think or what we have to say. So for me, I think it was wrong. I think the optics of riding or having a friend, and it's like Abdullah May, like he gave a synopsis with Joe Biden. If Joe Biden was sending a private plane for Joseph Boyka, that would be news. That would be news that everybody would know before he even gets on that plane. So why is it that we only saw snippets, little pictures here and there about the trip, and we still don't know anything yet from the boycott camp about the entire trip? So for me, I think it was wrong. I just think it was wrong for him to accept the offer to ride a private jet. He could have gone in a commercial jet, and if they felt it necessary for us to see the pictures from the private jet, then we should have seen the picture when he climbed in a commercial flight.
Would that still be a problem if JMB uses his own money to fly the private jet?
So the thing about it is, you also have to look, when you look, it was his money. But the thing about it is, when you look at it, why would it be necessary for him to fly a private jet now to go and meet someone who nobody knows what the meeting is about? Or why did he go? Or the fact that, don't forget also that Bernard Ure is a businessman. So can we look at it back and say there could be favors that could be associated with the trip later on if VP Barker becomes president?
So
could we
also say that this trip may be Mr. Ure's trip because he's a businessman, he's a rich man. Maybe he paid for the private jet on his personal business venture, and Mr. Boyka happened to tag along?
We could say that. We could say that, but the thing about it is, because we don't have an official statement from them, and we're hearing hearsays, bits and pieces for some of the people of UP, then what does that lead us? What do we believe? What can we say? Who was the trip really for? What was the intent of the trip?
Thank you. Well, there's a lot of things we don't know about this politician. They have not been able to set examples, right, of what they will do differently. While it is true that these candidates are private citizens, but if we want to show a sharp contrast, between, for instance, our current president, who rarely make public statements, we don't have reports. The finance ministry would not give us a budget performance report and all these things. I think it's time for these presidential candidates to show a big contrast by, having an open book, yes, making reports of what they are involved with, right? It may not be constitutionally required, but how do you show the contrast if you are not doing these things that will make us to think that, hey, see, President, we don't know, what you're doing, but for the other people, we know what they are involved in, and we can hold them accountable. And we believe when they get to power, they'll do the same thing. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I think it does.
It does. It's very important. Maybe the Liberian people will have to begin to demand these things, because usually we don't hear from these people at the end of the day when they are voted in office. Then they begin to really show people who they are. So the trip that is in question now, it's important for people to know who he's going to, because everybody say Boyka doesn't have money, he's a modest person and blah blah blah, but he is in that plane, well posted for the picture. I mean, he enjoys it. At that moment, Boyka enjoyed the moment with the picture. When you see it, he was ready for the picture. And this is somebody that said, is living a modest life. What if he has the opportunity to buy a jet plane for himself? He might do the same thing. That's why it's important for us to see what is going on now, and then we can make our decision based on what we see. But I'm not, and I agree with my colleague when he said, if somebody send me, plane to go do whatever, I will. But then the motive that is behind that, we need to know the motive. Because that's why when people take office, they have to certify all these things that they dealt with when they were running. A lot of people are going to be giving you favors because they want you to return the same favor.
Pay for play.
Yes, pay for play. And it's beginning now to manifest. So we have to ask the questions so that it will not be a surprise. Because Nigeria, they got a whole lot of business people there. And you going with another business tycoon. We have to differentiate now. Running for president, you hanging with all the top business people that nobody knows. It's something that we need to look at carefully.
I think Baka brought it onto himself.
Why should we know these people? I mean,
we have to know because they could be
Canadians, do that all the time. Even here, right? They have they have their rallies or how the fundraising meetings and all that.
Yeah, but we still know who's giving the money. We still know who's spending what.
There's a record.
So you see the thing is, let not take business people to be evil in politics.
No,
right?
no, we're not taking them to be evil. But at that particular time, we don't know what kind of deals they're going to be. Business people, everything has to be what they spend and get back. No business person will just waste their money. They're expecting favor at the end of everything.
Private jet.
Yeah, for me, I'm saying we shouldn't just see business people as a frightening rod. When you say politician meeting business people, you meet business people with your principles. You meet them with your ethics, and you discuss with them on your rules. So you can't transform Liberia without the critical involvement of the private sector and private actors. You can't transform. No country has done that. Liberia will not be an exception. No country. You can't transform a developing country without the injection of foreign investments. Whether it's investment in human capital, whether it's investment in infrastructure, whether it's investment, whatever way you need foreign direct investment. Why it is true that
you mean foreign money in the campaign or
no
after you become president? Okay.
No, I'm saying you need foreign investment as a president to run your country. Right?
Or you have to know what kind of people you're dealing with, because that is the problem.
That's what I'm saying. That when somebody has power and engages business people, you engage them on your ethics, you engage them on your values, you engage them on the interests of your people. You don't push them away because business people are bad people. You bring them to the table and make sure they work to your terms. You make sure they work to your terms because you need their resources. The only thing is you must be able to guard their resources in a way that it generates maximum benefit for your people rather than increasing profit for their private, lifestyle. But you need them.
You need them, but you don't need all of them because some of them don't have good reputations for their money to be used. Then you're going to be in problem when you become president and people begin to know who all gave you money.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about...
Let's leave it there. Let me
clarify. I'm not talking about going to take money from business people with the promise that when you become president, you will get an investment. That's not my discussion. I'm saying, as we discuss the Baka issue, we should keep in our mind beyond campaigning process as a government, as president. Say, for example, President Congo, needs private capital into Liberia.
We are not reached there.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about the two protests or two rallies being planned. The Retire Suffering Rally and Rescue the State Rally. We'll be right back. Let's listen to this drum beat from the cultural ambassador. Welcome back to Debate Friday, Friday night debate on Focus on Liberia. My guest, Glenda Juniors, she's an independent. Welle Wilson, another independent, and Ambula Mame, a supporter of Councillor Tiawanse Gonglo for president. The next issue I want us to talk about is two rallies have been planned. One is the one being headed by Mr. Louis Brown of the CPP, called "We Are Tired Suffering" rally. A lot of people, some people have embraced the rally, saying yes, the Liberian people are suffering. They need to voice that out. Others are saying this is good, but the message is good, but the messenger Louis Brown is bad. Others say, well, if the righteous people cannot talk for us, let sinners talk for us. So there are a lot of things to consider on this "We Tired Suffering" rally. Some are even saying Louis Brown and Mr. Cummings are not suffering. Why are they saying "We tired suffering"? It should be "they tired suffering." A lot of things to talk about here on the "We Tired Suffering" rally. Let me start with you, Welle. Are the Liberian people suffering, and do they have to go in the street to tell the people we tired suffering? What do you make of this rally?
Well, it's true that the Liberian people are suffering because everybody you speak to, they have some problem. Even visits, people that come to say hello, they all have problems. We see that on the internet, from inboxes. It's like it's worse. All right. So they have reason to be in the street, to peacefully protest so that the government will know that they are suffering. So I support that, once it's non-violent, I support that. But it's somebody who has not stood up for the Liberian people, who doesn't have any kind of history of fighting for the Liberian people, who been enjoying from 1989 probably up to this point, and just recently to want to organize protests that Liberian people are suffering. They've been suffering for decades. Is it now we're seeing that? I would rather go to the December 14th protest. Those messengers that sending the messages of protest or suffering. I think that's the message I want to listen to.
If the Liberian people are suffering, are actually suffering, does it matter who says it or who has it?
For me, it matters a lot. It matters a lot because you have to, when you're telling somebody this is what's going on, you have to already be somebody who have put that in your shoes. All right. You have tested that before. You have identified with them before. Then they know that you, but take for instance, the person who is organizing this protest, since President Taylor was president, he been having good time. Madame Sally Kim, he been having good time. During the war, that's the time Liberians were really suffering. So has he ever really stood up to say Liberian people are suffering, let's go and protest? He's never done that. We are being in Monrovia, we were there before. Not a single day we heard that somebody like Mr. Brown led a protest. So why now? Is it because those honeycombs are beginning to dry? So now he organizing protests? It might be a good protest because of the circumstances, but to me, it's not coming from the right person.
Mame,
if Gonglo is leading protests, then I know somebody is leading protests because he been there from day one. He been there for the Liberian people. He was jailed for the Liberian people. When people who organizing the protests now, when they were having good time, they never spoke up. I don't usually support Jefferson Kochi, but he has some points. He has some points that know you're not the right person. Right. They said now you see the protest. They said now you see the hardship for the Liberian people. They've been suffering all along.
What if Mr. Cummings himself was heading that protest? Will you be fine with it?
Well, if Mr. Cummings himself heading the protest, I wouldn't have any problem with that because I know he been doing his best to. I think he has a foundation. He been helping to do other things to help some Liberian people. So when the war was going, I know he did what he had to do. And so I don't really have a problem. He didn't have a direct benefit from those regimes where Liberian people were suffering. He didn't have a direct benefit. So I'm not going to hold him responsible and say, well, he never spoke up. You know, he helped. But people who benefited, they now want to say that it's suffering because they're not in position now, then I have a problem with that.
Thank you. Mr. Mame, I will come to let me come to you now on this protest. Winston Thomas said something when he was running and said, well, with Judge Weah, he said, if your house is on fire and someone is coming with a fire truck to put your fire up, will you say, oh, no, stop, let me get your credentials? So if these things are going on, Liberian people are suffering, and then you have this guy who is agree he's not clean, but he's coming to identify with the people and say, let me rally you, you are suffering too much. Come, let's say something about your suffering. What's wrong with it? I heard your party chairman, your LPP chairman, also casting doubts on Mr. Brown being the actual messenger, a good messenger for this message. What's your take?
Yeah, the party took a position. To be honest, I'm not a member of the Liberia's People Party. To be honest, I support Councillor Gonglo for president. I will, maybe eventually make a decision or determination on whether the Liberia's People Party is where I want to, deposit my political future, right? But I support Gonglo to be president. So I read the party's statement. What I can say is there could be legitimate concerns about the sincerity of the actors behind a protest. Are they genuine about this protest? What's the motive? Those are things I'm interested in more than I'm interested in saying this man doesn't have, the voice because he didn't protest yesterday. If I can establish that somebody who did not protest yesterday wants to protest today for a genuine purpose, and the person is committed to that, the person is sincere about it, whether you protested yesterday or not, I can support you if I believe that you are committed, sincere, and pursuing a genuine cause. Today in America, and if I establish that you're not genuine about what you're doing, I wouldn't support you in a protest. I wouldn't want to just create noise around and know that this man not serious about it. I just jump behind because I see him making protests. So historical incidences can inform your action as to whether you support the person, whether they are genuine at the moment. In America today, Vice Joseph Joe Biden is advancing one of the most progressive agenda for minorities, for Black people and minorities. One of the most progressive agenda for minorities. Through legislations, through policies, he advocates as a president for minorities. But decades back, Biden is on record of supporting legislation that strangulate minorities.
Mm-hmm.
Biden is on record for doing that. Biden is on record of describing prime leaders of the KKK as his mentors in America. Kamala Harris confronted him and said, Vice President Biden, the legislation you supported affected me as a child, as an immigrant child. But today, Biden leads the campaign in the United States for minorities.
So you are saying political repentance is possible?
Political repentance is possible. Changing times, changing movements is possible.
Thank you.
So when those things happen, for me, the key indicator is not whether you said it yesterday and you didn't say it today. is whether you are genuine about what you're saying today.
And
I
how do you
conduct
know?
my assessment and come to that realization. So people who saw Biden making condescending statements in the past about minorities, supporting legislation that strangulated minorities, later on realized that this man has repented, or this man has realized that America cannot make progress in the absence of the minorities. America cannot make progress with division and segregation. He has realized that, and he's championing a genuine cause to empower minorities. So they're supporting him. They supported legislation in the House because they feel he's genuine about it. But they're not blaming him because he said in the past, or he supported legislation in the past against
So how do you know the protest in Liberia is genuine?
Oh no, I'm not in Liberia. I'm not in Liberia. I've not followed the
but they're asking you a specific question about somebody who's leading protest.
Come again?
Hold on, Alice. Let me go to Glendy. Yeah, let's go to Glendy to get your take on the We Retire Suffering protest.
So let me comment. I like the phrase political repentance. So can we equate political repentance to Prince Johnson?
Exactly.
That is if Prince Johnson expressed genuine, if Prince Johnson have a genuine conversation about political repentance. Prince Johnson is boasting in the midst of saying, oh no, sorry. Prince Johnson continued to take a position against accountability. Consistently.
So the reason why
so you cannot be definitively taking a position against accountability
in the
same tune at the same moment, and then you say I repent.
The reason why I'm asking, when you're talking about political repentance, and I think in all fairness, I think Liberians as a whole were more focused on the messenger and not the message.
Fine.
And I think we need to be able to give CPP, not ANC, CPP, because there are two political parties together. That I may sound biased, but I'm trying to be as objective as possible. CPP is hosting the rally. Louis Brown happens to be a part of ANC. Louis Brown may have spoken about the rally first. Billity also spoke about the rally. Other people of ANC and CPP have spoken about the rally. Why? And I think the focus is people are focusing on Louis Brown and what he has done to say that the rally is being hosted by him. I am of the opinion that if CPP came to us and CPP came to information decentralization, whatever, and they said, we are hosting a rally, then I'm not equating the rally to an individual. I'm equating the rally to a CPP, not to Louis Brown.
Do you think Louis Brown is the face of the rally? Because he announced it and he's been very forceful about it.
The reason why I'm saying that is because the reason why I'm saying that is because I'm listening to Welly, and that's what she's saying. And then
that's what the news is saying. He's the face.
But that is not the news, Welly. The CPP, according to CPP, and all of the letters that they've sent, even the letter that was received today from the Justice Ministry, it was addressed to CPP, not ANC, not LP, but to CPP. So I want to be fair and say I'm not going to equate it to an individual. I'm going to equate it to this group. And and it would be if Prince Johnson was a part of this rally, people will say, "Oh, Prince Johnson because he inside, so he should not be a part." That's why I said about political repentance.
Right, Glendy. Louis Brown was the one who announced the rally for the first time, right?
Okay.
So it was not CPP. He did.
People see him as the face of this rally, not the CPP chair, not the ANC standard bearer, not. So he announced the rally, so he has been the face. He's the one who is throwing out a challenge that you can't stop us, we'll do this, we'll do that. So we cannot
exclude him. and say
we
CPP.
should see him in that light as the face of the rally.
And that's and you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. And I have chosen not to look at the individual. I have chosen not to look at him. I have chosen to look at CPP because CPP is saying that they're the ones, whether he's the driver, whether he's the one who's selling.
I'm looking at the driver that's driving the car.
I have decided to say, let me finish, Welly. I have decided to say that this is a CPP rally. Now, let me answer the question. Should they have a rally? That's their choice. If they meet all of the things that the government have wanted them to meet, if it's a peaceful rally, which it can be related to free speech, they can do it. Should Gonglo's group have a rally? That's on them. It's their choice. They can do it also. Now, should we, with the history we know about Liberia, do you ever see the people who are really suffering coming out there and saying we're going to protest? Have we ever seen that? Who are we waiting for? Like Abdullah said, who are we waiting for to spread this message? We should be concerned about whoever is bringing it, how and whether this message that they're sending is authentic, and not just be focused only on the messenger. That's how I see it.
But how do you see the rally itself? Do you think we tire suffering rally should be held or not?
I think if they have a lot, I think if they have a portion of the Liberian people, a part of the rally, like the suffering masses, if they're the ones who are in the forefront, then I think the nomenclature of that rally would fit. Because you can be people who are not suffering to sell that message. And who are you selling it for? So the people who are suffering, if they are a part of that rally, then of course, I'm okay with it. It's right. And like I said, I support the rally. Any group that want to come out and protest, it's free speech, they can do it. But equally so, if you're coming out and you're naming a rally that I'm tired of suffering, then ensure that there are suffering masses at that rally that's going to be out there speaking out about it. That's my only point.
And definitely, I think
if you are saying that you are suffering, organizing rally that you are suffering, and you know you are not suffering, and you know you've been siding with people that cause a lot of suffering, and now you're leading rally, then there's a problem.
And there's a problem with Prince Johnson even building a university. There's a problem with him building a whole university. I mean, there's so many things that we continue to focus on what people have done. We're not going to move from to the next step or the next level. Even when
we have to encourage the Liberian people to take the lead.
I'm just saying, we can do that, but we have to get to the place where we look at the message and what the intent of the message is, then focusing on the individuals that's going to limit us to go from point A to point B.
And that's why you don't use individuals that are going to limit you. They got a lot of people in there that could lead, that could be the face of that rally.
And I will stick to Prince Johnson, but we made him a senator and he built a school, a university in Nima County.
That doesn't exclude him from whatever.
So for me, you can look at it. I can look at the individual, but I look at the individual from different perspectives. I look at the individual on their commitment to what they are saying.
But the thing is, you will never know what a person thinks within themselves. So it's difficult for you to know.
Human being is not like a corn. It's not like a corn.
Nobody know what you're thinking.
Nobody know what you're thinking.
So my thing is, human being is not a corn that you can, like a maze, you can open and see and know what is
right. So how can you say based on their thinking?
Oh no, there are indicators. Even when you enter into business with somebody, you can determine whether the person will trick you or not. But there are certain criteria you set to know whether this person is genuine or not. But on a Louis Brown protest, this is what I can say. You see, the psychology of protest is what we need to pay attention to. The psychology of protest is not necessarily the number of boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. The psychology of protest is the message and the impact of the message on the people. Today, across Liberia, all the different networks are discussing one thing: attire suffering. That message has gone across the country. It's playing on the psyche of the people against George Weah's re-election. That is what I take from the entire process. Whether they get on the ground.
Let's look at this other part quickly. You have 4 major opposition, or 3, right? The Unity Party does not seem to be on board. We've also heard from the LPP their criticism of Louis Brown. I mean, I've seen a lot of posting of a Unity Party actually being critical of the. I mean, where does this advantage President Weah in the CDC?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
it does.
It does, because
President Weah doesn't want the rally. He doesn't want the rally for 2 reasons. One, what we're discussing now, that people tired suffering under Weah, that message, he doesn't want it to resonate. That's one. 2, he doesn't want people to gather. Because when people gather, there are likelihood that when they gather, the messages they will receive against his administration will impact their decision to vote for him or vote against him. So he doesn't like it. So when the rally is not, and that's the reason why he even brought in the military to threaten people to not show up.
So do you think LPP and Unity Party are working in Weah's favor?
No, they're not working in Weah's favor. That's the reason why the LPP was smart. You see the LPP? The LPP distanced themselves from the rally, acknowledged the need for a rally, and organized a rally.
Yeah, on December 14th.
Wendy, what do you think?
Yeah, so it tells you they're not working in Weah's interest. They acknowledge the need for a rally, distance themselves from an existing rally, and announce a rally to pursue the same cause.
Right.
So the LPP message
we'll come to the LPP rally, but I mean, with tired suffering, as you said, the name is resonating with the people. So Unity Party and LPP is undercutting this effort. Glenda, what do you think?
That's the truth. Because this is the thing. If in it all, they don't see that President Weah benefits from this unity of the opposition. He benefits. It's that you can even come together regardless. And this is the thing. If we all are working for the suffering masses, regardless of political parties, we will put all our differences together and go out there. So LPP will come now. They've cut in front now. They're going to host their own rally before the other CPP own a rally. Then when you know UP doing their own rally. So who's really focusing on the needs of the Liberian people? It's self-interest. Whether we are divided or not, we should have been able to come together. And this is the thing.
And
yes.
What they're saying is maybe CPP who have invited them to say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. What do you think? Can we join?
True. They could have. And maybe LPP too could have gone and extended a right hand and said, listen, can we look at the rally and do it this way instead of you doing one and we doing one? Where is the interest in the Liberian people? Where is the interest in the Liberian people? It is all for self. One party want to do this and look better than the other party.
Well, this whole thing looks like Susu, right?
That's
join
it.
your rally, I join your rally. So if you are telling me,
hold on.
I'm coming with your question. You are telling me my rally is wrong, but I'm stating my own. But we'll come to the LPP rally. What do you make of the opposition divided on this whole idea of rally or protest?
The opposition has been together, and I'm gonna restate what I stated before. Because the CPP decided to make Louis Brown the face of that rally. That's why there is another rally on the 14th of December. If you want to host a rally to get everybody from all angles, you have to know who is the messenger. And if you bring messenger with a whole lot of baggages, or some other people will not show up. And those who are not going to show up are the ones that LPP is appealing to come and march on the 14th of December.
If you want to join the conversation, call the number on your screen, 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403#. And that's a good segue to our last point here, which is the LPP rally. LPP rally, I mean, Mr. Mami, why LPP? We did not hear of LPP rally until the Retire Suffering rally.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't want to.
But they stated a reason, Dennis.
Yeah, I really don't want to speak more to the LPP rally because I just read the press release about it. I don't know the thinking behind it, but my assumption would be that, it's just a coincidence. It's a coincidence that, the LPP is announcing her rally after, the CPP announced their rally. I see it as a coincidence, a very good coincidence, in fact, that two different organizations have realized that the people are suffering. But more than people suffering, that there are institutional risks around the elections that the LPP highlighted, around the biometrics, around the president's absence, around civil servant salary, that they want to highlight during their rally. They want to seek answer to address those problems. Those are structural problems beyond just saying people hungry, So it's a good coincidence that two strong political institutions in the country are thinking about bringing people out to speak loudly about issues that affect them. And we stand with the LPP in their rally and support them.
Yeah, but the LPP at the same time announcing their rally is saying Louis Brown is not the good messenger for that cause. And at the same time announcing their rally, it doesn't seem like coincidence to me, but you can say that.
I mean, how can it be a coincidence? It's not a coincidence.
I don't think it's a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence.
Hold on, well, let Glendy finish.
How can it be a coincidence? It's not a coincidence. We didn't hear that they had planned a rally before. Do they have to have granted they're saying that Louis Brown is not the right person to be the messenger for or to have the face. So were they approached? Did they ask them to join the rally? Did they make those suggestions and say we didn't want Louis Brown? So it's like, how divided can this opposition be? That you have one rally that they have
they are in different political parties.
On the 14th.
They are in different political parties.
I get that, but when you're having a rally or you're having a protest, who are you focusing on? The people of Liberia, right?
Yeah, I would suppose.
Yes. So rally and protest are not partying that citizens' interests.
No, they all want to be.
It can be individual interests too.
And Alex, my question for you here is, even with the good points that the LPP raised for the rally, guess where they are taking this rally?
To the Capitol Hill.
Capitol building. I mean, you really want to go to the legislators to say what?
Well, they're taking it there because Dillon suggested that. 2 days ago, Dillon suggested that. 3 days ago, at a Senate hearing, Senator Dillon suggested, if you want to host a rally, you need to host a rally or protest and bring it to the Capitol building because we write the laws. Come protest against us. And he's been advocating for that.
And whether does that make sense? Do we expect any miracle from this house?
There's nothing that will happen.
Well, it goes from there, but I think it is good to set them because they have the authority. They make the laws and they have the right to rectify some of the laws that are faulty. So carrying the protest there is a good thing. Whether it's going to yield any fruits, I cannot speak to that, but that's the right thing to do.
And what is the expectation going to the house? What do they expect to happen?
Well, a lot of things, that could happen. So going there and listing all these structural problems, the Senate or the legislators can address those problems. For right now, they decided to postpone the voter registration. The census has not been done, but they were the same people when somebody was preaching against the time not being right. They approved the time that they said the census was going to be conducted. Here we are, nothing is conducted. So the protests go in there to tell them that these are the structural problems that you need to address so that we can have a free and fair elections. And so if LPP goes to the Capitol building and lists all these things, highlight them for the Senate, they might be able to do something. But even if they don't do something, the Liberian people will know that there was a protest and these things were explained, and the Senate or the representatives never did anything. So the LPP going there, I think it's the right move at this point.
Thank you. Let me bring in our first caller. Let me bring in the first caller. Caller, your name and where you calling from.
My name is Ambrose. I'm calling from Kentucky, Louisville, to be precise.
Welcome, Ambrose. Go ahead.
Yeah, how you doing? How you doing to your guest? You know, I got a couple of issues, and I listen to the show so much that everything I wanted to talk about, I'm pretty much forgetting about everything. But let's go back to the Louis Brown issue. What people forgetting, one of your panelists mentioned it. Louis Brown, when he was with the MPFL or with Chancellor, he never demonstrated. They suppressed people that wanted to demonstrate against them, and we were criticized to demonstrate against them. Demonstrate against Chancellor or tell Chancellor, oh, so what, we tired suffering or we tired just killing Liberians. Nobody did none of that. But let's fast forward to when he was information minister, he closed almost 2 or 3 radio stations called Castro and RCCA. If your radio station got shut down because you talk too much against Elijah. But that's the same gentleman that pulled almost 25 people or 45 people out of work that don't have a job right now, telling Liberians they are suffering. You know, that's why our country is not moving forward, because we're not honest, we're not truthful. When people do wrong or associate with wrong, we say, oh, because we like the person they support or the person that in power will not like them, then we will come and rally around them. But we're not telling them, say, oh, you're not supposed to be the one telling us. We're not Liberians are suffering. Everything we send money to Liberia.
Right.
We know our people are suffering, but Louis Brown is sending a red message here.
But Ambrose, let's look at this. Yes. They say even a broken clock can be right 2 times a day. If the people are suffering, and we all know that they are suffering, and we have 11 months to election, nobody is saying that. If Louis Brown, with all his dirty hands, come out and say it, I mean, what's wrong with that? Isn't it the truth?
Okay, no, it's not the truth. You know, you see,
the people not suffering.
I'll tell you, man. You asked for a question, though. The people are suffering. There's no denying on that. But Louis Brown can't be the. Louis Brown is one that come to. They don't want to be there to all the suffering that people suffering today.
Exactly.
Like, if we never have a civil war, we're never going to be suffering the way we're suffering today. Because I was born in Yekepa, and I never slept under no light. I was born in Yekepa for the day I knew myself. It was always light in Yekepa. We go to Yekepa now. The people sleeping continue. You go to Yekepa, and you can't Ranko. You see the hospital. I used to be proud. Go to the bus stop to go pick up my father or but let's say they're coming to my parents to go pick them up on the red bus stop. But Louis Brown was government that give me the Liberia Liberia or teaching Liberia until all the suffering that come on us. So it's politics.
But Ambrose,
it's time to tell Cummings.
Ambrose,
yeah, go ahead.
You know, Saul was persecuting, right? The Christian, right? But when he met Jesus, he became a preacher. Will you say, oh no, you can't preach because you were persecuting the people before? What if that's the same situation with Louis Brown?
Okay, you see, we gotta be honest. Louis Brown worked for this government, but if the king was disappearing when he was ambassador to the United Nations. Yeah,
he got fired. I know that.
That's why he's organizing the protest.
America, because of the hatred of Chancellor, what America did to Chancellor government. Have you seen that post or have you seen that comment that he made? That was the reason why he voted against America. Because America was not honest with Chancellor government or never supported Chancellor government. So he came with that hatred. After any of giving redemption, say, oh, you know, I know you were with Chancellor, But, since you know I can sanction you, I will bring you back into government so you can work. But when you came to America,
okay.
against America with the hatred. I don't have nothing against that brother. I don't know him. I don't have nothing. I want to know if he was part of MPFL and our people got killed in that war. So I don't have nothing against it. But for him to be the one saying our people suffering, I feel like that's Cummings is trying. Cummings is doing spaghetti analysis. I don't know if you ever did quality control where you throw anything on the wall and see which one will stick. That's what you're doing here. So they start with the grown people. Man, politics is a bad game. But thank you for taking my call, man.
Thank you, Ambrose. Ambrose saying Cummings is playing spaghetti politics.
What he calls spaghetti politics?
Cummings is throwing everything on the wall to see which one sticks.
The only thing I know is Cummings has been refining his strategy towards 2023. He's been making some adjustments, from his original stance on policy issues. He been, for a lack of better word, he been flip-flopping on them. I don't know the motive, but I assume that he's advised to do that because doing that will rally the people around him, will give him additional votes, to take into the second round, or whatever the case is. So those refine and implement has been ongoing with the Cummings process. The thing that happened in Claratown with the Gribble endorsement is just part of the refine and implement. The protest Louis Brown announced on behalf of the CPP is also part of the refine and implement. And subsequently going forward, you will see a lot of different radical approach that are uncharacteristic of Cummings you see happening within the CPP. Cummings to be a quiet businessman, political man, diplomatic in his approach. But going towards 2023 in subsequent days, you'll begin to see some radical approaches. You'll begin to see some statements coming out of the Cummings camp that are uncharacteristic of Cummings, and Cummings wouldn't denounce them because he advised and accepted that those are things that are intended to raise the momentum towards his campaign. So that is it for the protest. Like I said before, Liberians are suffering, but I realized that Liberians have gone underwater. They're just waiting for election to express their dissatisfaction and their dislike. They feel that protests cannot solve the problem. Even though protests can create awareness, rally can create awareness, rally can play on the psyche of the people and mobilize them into action. But the D-Day is the election day, and people are prepared to go and express their dissatisfaction on election day.
Thank you. Glennie, what if Mr. Cummings himself was leading this protest, that he was the spokesperson? Is it because he looked like he's kind of not as forceful or as charismatic and eloquent as Louis Brown? Is it a reason? And where is Mr. Bwaka in this whole protest business? Is he allowing some of his party folks to do the job for him?
That question, I don't even know how to respond to that question when you're talking about eloquence and all of that. I think it's a strategic decision that they made. They probably wanted, I think the name Louis Brown, there's some people that get upset with it. There's some people who like it. I think it triggers everybody when they hear Louis Brown. So maybe they wanted, it could be a strategy for publicity, for the rally to hear that Louis Brown is in charge of it. There are so many emotions that comes out with Louis Brown name. Now, I wouldn't say that Mr. Cummings is not eloquent, because I think he is eloquent. I think that was their strategy to say if he is the one and it's not CPP and it's not Musa Ability, I guess it was a strategy to say Louis Brown is going to be the one that will sell the rally out there. Believe it or not, everybody, regardless of who we think that individual is, people still have people that support them. Yeah. Some people may not want President Weah, but President Weah still has a strong base. Yeah. Still does. So no matter who that person is, some people still may still be aligning themselves with Louis Brown because of Tiller. People still love Charles Tiller. Right. They gravitate towards it.
And they want the toughness from Charles Tiller now, or Louis Brown is standing up to Koji. Is that what Mr. Cummings couldn't do? That's why he pushed Louis Brown forward?
And I don't know. I don't know if it could be. I don't think Mr. Cummings is probably the person who has an aggressive nature, or who likes fights and who is able to stand up. That could be a strategy. That could be something that Cummings is not want to make fights or to fight with people.
He doesn't want to get in the dirt, to be dirty, so he wants to use somebody else.
Now you're being political by saying that.
I'm just asking the question.
I mean, it's possible. It's all strategy. You see how much noise Louis Brown selling this rally has created. How much publicity, because people probably don't want to hear the name Louis Brown. Louis Brown maybe can trigger a lot of things in different people. And so it has probably given the rally. And people say CDC people don't like to hear Louis Brown name. And Louis Brown himself says that George Weah doesn't like to hear his name either. So it's like maybe that was a strategy for him to be in the forefront to give it the publicity that it needs.
And the second point that I want Weller to talk to that too, where is JMB in this whole rally business?
Well, JMB, to be very honest, I don't know where he stands with this rally. I don't know whether he's going to support the LPP rally or the other one that is coming on the 17th. So for now, I can't really speak to that. He might want to be quiet. Maybe he intends to be quiet and don't participate in both of the rallies. But we'll see as time comes closer.
And Mohammed, this has been JNB's problem, right? Even with this whole Ellen thing, we really didn't see whether he was for or against. He always like play it safe. You think he should play it safe with these rallies coming up?
Joe Burger has a characteristic of playing the elderly role. He sits and just from the back, look at people talking.
Presidential candidates go in the back.
Yeah, that's what he does. He comes out seldomly, and again, as an old man in the village, normally they don't talk. They just give wise counsel. They don't speak publicly. They're not loud. But I think depending on the nature of the situation, Walker can take position. There was a certain time. Yeah, you wanted to say something?
I'm like, I just gotta laugh when you're trying to describe someone who wants to be a president. You say this old man when they come out. So are you trying to say that Joe Burger when they come out certain times when he become president? I mean, what is that?
Oh no, Burger is not coming out on your terms. That's the thing. That's what we're trying to pull out.
Okay, but when he becomes president, he will be out, right?
Come again?
When he becomes president, he will be out.
No, I said he doesn't come out to speak on your terms.
Okay.
So he has follow him. One of the time he was vice president, he's not a talking type, But for me, I think when it comes to critical issue in the country where opinions are divided, interests are divided, it is just important to take a side and defend it rather than to be seen as being neutral. Sometimes the people say the neutral man die in the show. You want to play for the hero, you play for the bad man, and you die in the show. So you have to take a position on these critical issues. Yeah. But it depends whether Baka sees the protests, both rallies, LPP rally and the CPP rally, whether he sees it as something that is topical enough, to speak to. That is his choice to make. But I know at a certain point in time, there was a rally Baka, took a position. I think when July 7th or one other rally, I remember, he took a position. His party chairman disassociated the party. He maintained the position and even expelled the party chairman, So he has taken position on issues before. Maybe he has his own metrics of determining, what magnitude of issue he should take a position on. I wouldn't beat him for that. I wouldn't really beat him for that.
Thank you. And I like what during his interview in Nigeria, they asked him why, as former vice president was still running. And he said, if the thing running behind you doesn't stop, you don't stop running. So JMB is running. Let me tell you what is coming up. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have a debate right here, JNB versus Weah. We have George Preston Lobo, who is a Bwakai supporter and official of Unity Party USA, going against Isiaka Sharif, a WIA supporter based in Monrovia. They will be speaking about Bwaka Records, Vision versus the WIA Records and WIA Vision. We'll be talking about their leadership, their accomplishment in public service, and what we think will happen 2023. Who's going to win? That's coming up. Also, on Saturday at 7 p.m., there is this guy called Victor Bout, the Merchant of Death. This guy was supplying the NPFL and Charles Taylor with arms. He was put in jail for a number of years. Now he's being released in a U.S.-Russia prisoner swap. Former TRC Commissioner Massa Emilio Washington, who documented the things that this guy did in the Liberian Civil War, will be my guest tomorrow to discuss the role of Victor Bull in the Liberian Civil War. He's a convicted arms dealer who is now released in a U.S.-Russia prison swap. On Sunday, we're going to have noonday with Priscilla Nantos. She will be interviewing the only female presidential candidate or aspirant in the upcoming elections, Madame Magdala Cooper, and they will be talking about women political participation. You don't want to miss it. Always, always. And guess who's coming to FOL? Louis Brown. You'll be here to talk about the We Tire Suffering rally, and this happening Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. And my man, the political bulldog, Anthony Sia, will join me to ask some tough question to Mr. Brown. You don't want to miss that. Well, I want to thank you all for coming and taking your, this is the beginning of the weekend, and you use that time to be here and talk. I really, really appreciate your time. Let's go around the room. Let me get your closing comments on everything that we've discussed. Let me start with Wele. Wele, do we have?
Wele, are you frozen?
Do we have some issue with your?
I think she's frozen.
Okay, let's.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. I couldn't hear you for a minute.
Your closing comment.
Oh, well, I want to thank you for inviting me here, and the discussion was great. Everything discussed, from the protests to the AFL guy and the private jet and the rest of the things, they were all great and great people. The discussion went well. So I appreciate everything. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much for coming. We also want to thank our viewers. They are always here. Ambula, your closing comment.
We think the president and the Ministry of National Defense should issue statement to restore the dignity, to restore public confidence in the military. Mm-hmm. They need to do that because significant investment has been made into the military to ensure they remain a force for good and not a brutal force. The statement from the chief of staff threatening to come out, instill fear in our people, is uncouth, it's unacceptable. And if the president doesn't support his statement, as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Liberia, we call on the president to come up publicly and disassociate the army from such a statement. That would be the responsible thing to do. If he doesn't do that, it's an indication that he supports the action of a chief of staff. And the next step we will do is to make Liberians to understand that they're going to an election with a president who is ready to put all the army against them. They will make that decision. Regarding Vice President Bwaka's trip to Nigeria, I'm more concerned about the interaction, who he's interacting with. He's a private man, he can interact with people. But the fact that he decided to put out, piece of his visit, which is the private jet, it only creates the room for us to dig more into knowing who he's interacting with, what their interests in Liberia, and going forward. For the protests, Liberians are suffering. We know Liberians are suffering. Who organizing the rally is a critical question now that everybody is concerned about. The character of the person, their past record is important. I wouldn't want to shut down people for being skeptical about Louis Brown, but what I can say is, whether Liberian protests or not, whether they rally or not. The psyche of Liberia in the last 2 weeks have been turned around. Liberians are suffering, and it's a disadvantage to Georgia. We need to continue that message as the opposition community, whether we put boots on the ground to rally, whether we don't do that. We need to speak collectively to the suffering of our people and provide alternative. So thank you. I'm looking forward to having future interactions.
Thank you. Glendy, you got the last word.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Highly spirited, I would think. Welly and Abdullah, thank you also for sharing the space. I want to encourage President Weah to please let us know where he is, because we haven't seen him in a couple of days. It's important that we know where our president is.
He's in the U.S., as I was told.
Yeah, in the U.S. I saw a picture on Monday, and since Monday I haven't seen a picture. So it's important that we know where the president is at all times. And I'm going to tie it in with the defense minister. I think he should be concerned about where the president is and ensuring that he's safe. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you so much. I can't thank all of you enough for coming. I want to thank our viewers for also watching, even those who will watch later. Always focus on Liberia is the place to be. We educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, please keep your eye out for our tomorrow show. It's going to be an exciting weekend here. We never close a broadcast without playing the song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you support Mr. Boakai, Mr. Cummings, Mr. Gonglo, or Madam Mandela Cooper, Prince Johnson, or whoever you support, for whatever reason, we are all Liberians. What is incumbent upon all of us is to do our very best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. I love Liberia, and I'm sure you do as well. Good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people.